All right, let's dive into the world of Emir Kusturica. Yeah,
Kusturica.
Kusturica, this Serbian filmmaker
Oh, yeah, yeah.
with a certain, how do you describe his style?
Well, I mean, he's known for these really like eccentric and surreal films.
Yes.
And also just kind of wildly imaginative. You
Yes.
never really know.
And very funny.
Yeah, yeah.
He's really funny.
He's got a great sense of humor.
Yeah, and I feel like even when he's dealing with some pretty serious subject matter,
Right.
there's always like this underlying current of humor.
Yeah, he can blend that humor and tragedy so well.
Yeah.
You know, you can be laughing one minute
Yeah.
and then the next you're really like emotionally moved by something.
And his films are always just so visually captivating.
Yeah.
It's like, I always think about like the floating piano in Underground.
Yeah.
Like who else could make a floating piano look so natural?
It's part of his style,
Yeah.
that like magical realism.
Yeah.
Like, it's Kusturica. He's a master of it.
So for those who might be new to his films,
Sure.
where do we even begin?
Well, you know, a lot of people would say Time of the Gypsies is a great starting point.
Yes.
I mean, it's such a captivating story about this young Romani boy with telekinetic powers.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a really good example of his, magical realism and his social commentary all mixed in.
Yes, and the cinematography is breathtaking.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And the way he captures Romani culture,
Yeah.
it just feels so authentic.
It's so vibrant.
Yeah, it's like you're transported to another world.
And the music plays such a big part in that, too.
Yes.
Speaking of music, we can't talk about Kusturica without talking about Goran Bregović.
Oh, yes.
This longtime collaborator.
His music is incredible.
Oh, the music is it's so good.
Yeah.
It's like a mix of Balkan folk, rock, and gypsy brass, and it's so infectious.
Yes.
Like, I dare you to watch Black Cat, White Cat, and not want to get up and dance.
Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
That film is a perfect example of his comedic genius.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's chaotic, it's hilarious, it's a love story set in the world of Balkan Roma, and it's just pure fun.
It's a celebration of life, and it's so carefully crafted, too.
Yes, like there's so much going on.
So much going on.
But it's all very intentional.
Oh, yeah. He's a master of controlled chaos.
Yes, he is.
That's evident even in his more serious films, like When Father Was Away on Business.
Yes.
Which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's a really poignant story set in 1950s Yugoslavia. And it really showcases, his ability to weave personal stories with political commentary.
Yeah, and he does it so effectively.
Yeah.
You really feel for the characters.
Yeah.
You think deeply about the world that he creates.
And speaking of weaving these personal stories with political commentary, we have to talk about Underground.
Ah, yes. Underground, his masterpiece.
Yes.
It's a sprawling epic.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It's a lot. It tackles the turbulent history of Yugoslavia.
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
It is, in a way that's both satirical and deeply moving.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he uses humor as a way to cope with the tragedy.
Yeah.
It's like, even in the darkest of times, we can still find those moments of joy.
Yeah, and it's not just the humor, it's the visuals.
Yes.
It's the music.
Oh, yeah, it's everything.
The characters.
It all works together to create this tapestry of, emotions.
Yeah, it's definitely not a film you forget easily.
You don't forget Underground once you've seen it.
It stays with you.
It stays with you.
Now, you might be surprised to learn that Kusturica had a brief stint in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, that's right, he did.
What? I had no idea.
Yeah.
What film did he make in Hollywood?
It's called Arizona Dream.
Okay.
And it stars Johnny Depp, Faye Dunaway, and Jerry Lewis.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a cast.
It's a very interesting cast.
So was it a typical Hollywood blockbuster?
Not at all.
No.
It is still very much a Kusturica film, full of surrealism, dreamlike sequences,
Right.
and that blend of humor and melancholy that he's so known for.
It's fascinating how, even when he's working within the Hollywood system, he manages to maintain his unique style.
Yeah, he really stayed true to his vision.
Yeah.
And, it faced some challenges because Hollywood wasn't quite ready for that.
Right, right.
But it's gained this cult following over the years.
Oh, I bet.
People love it.
Yeah.
And, Johnny Depp has spoken very highly of working on that film.
Oh, cool.
He had a great time.
I'm going to have to see that.
You should.
So for someone who might be completely new to Kusturica's work, what would you say makes his films so instantly recognizable?
Well, For one, there's his love of absurdity.
Okay.
You know, he finds humor in the most unexpected places.
Yeah.
You might have a wedding scene that turns into this crazy brawl with farm animals.
Farm animals.
Oh, yeah, farm animals, like a runaway brass band.
Okay.
It's unpredictable.
I love that. But it's not just the absurdity, right?
Yeah.
There's more to it than that.
Right.
So what else?
He's got a knack for creating these visually dynamic worlds, you know, with like sweeping camera movements, unconventional angles, bold colors.
Yes.
And it just creates this sense of energy and movement.
It's like his films pulsate with life.
They really do.
It's incredible.
And he's not afraid to blur those lines between reality and fantasy.
Yes.
Like,
sure.
You could have a scene that starts grounded in reality and then suddenly there's a character floating through the air.
Right.
Or a talking donkey offering life advice.
So safe to say that with Kusturica, you should expect the unexpected.
Always expect the unexpected with Kusturica.
That's exciting.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Keeps you on your toes.
So his films are visually stunning, musically captivating, full of surprises. What about the stories themselves?
Well, he explores a lot of different themes.
Okay.
One of the big ones is cultural identity, particularly in the context of the Balkans.
Oh.
He often explores the richness and complexity of Balkan culture, the traditions, the music, the conflicts.
Makes sense considering his own background, the region he grew up in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from those difficult aspects of history.
No, you don't.
Like in Underground, he tackles the turbulent history of Yugoslavia head-on.
Yes.
Exploring themes of war, ethnic tensions, the disintegration of a nation.
And how does he manage to handle such sensitive topics?
Well, he does it with this blend of humor, satire, and compassion. You know, he doesn't sugarcoat the realities of war and conflict.
Wow.
But he also finds these moments of humanity and even absurdity amidst all the chaos.
It sounds like he's trying to find a balance between acknowledging the darkness of history and celebrating the resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
He's showing us that even when things fall apart, we can still find ways to rebuild and reconnect.
So we have the cultural identity, we have resilience. Are there any other major themes that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, another big one is this tension between tradition and modernity.
Okay.
A lot of his films feature characters who are kind of caught between the pull of the past and then like the allure of the future.
That's something that resonates with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Especially in a world that's changing so rapidly.
Yeah, and Kusturica explores this theme in different ways.
Okay.
Sometimes it's played for laughs, like in Black Cat, White Cat, where you have this clash between old world customs and then the modern world.
Right.
But then he also tackles it in a more serious way, like in Time of the Gypsies, where the character is torn between his Romani upbringing and the modern world. Yeah,
it sounds like he's exploring the challenges of holding on to your cultural heritage.
Exactly.
But also embracing the opportunities of the modern world.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he weaves these complex themes into his films.
Yeah, he's a master storyteller. He knows how to connect with audiences on an emotional level, even when he's dealing with challenging subject matter.
Yeah, so to recap, we have cultural identity, resilience, and the tension between tradition and modernity.
Yeah.
Are there any other recurring themes or motifs that jump out at you?
Well, his use of animals is pretty striking.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just like they're just in the background. They often have these symbolic roles representing larger ideas.
Give us some examples.
Okay, well, in Black Cat, White Cat, you have this image of a pig running amok.
Okay.
And it's almost like symbolizing this unpredictable nature of fate.
Right.
And then in Underground, you have this scene with a goose.
Okay.
And it's a really powerful metaphor for freedom and escape.
It's fascinating. He's using these animals to add another layer of meaning.
Right. It makes you look beyond the surface of what you're seeing.
It's like he's prompting us to look deeper.
Exactly.
And it also speaks to his playful and often surreal approach to filmmaking. He's not afraid to experiment with imagery and symbolism.
He's very creative.
Yeah.
He's always pushing the boundaries.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
Kusturica's films seem to be full of symbolism, hidden meanings, layers of interpretation.
They are.
So it's not just entertainment. It's like He wants us to think.
Oh, yeah. He wants you to think.
Yeah.
He wants you to engage with the material.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's so rewarding to watch his films over and over again.
Yes.
Because you always discover something new.
It's like he's inviting us to participate in the storytelling process.
Yeah.
And create our own meanings from his work.
Exactly. He's not trying to tell you what to think.
Right.
He's giving you the tools to explore his world and draw your own conclusions.
And I think that's a mark of a truly great filmmaker.
I agree.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation so far.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling much more prepared to dive into Kusturica's filmography. But before we move on, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier, his controversial reputation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important aspect of his career.
Yeah, Kusturica has been a subject of controversy, particularly for his political views and his outspoken nature.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to speak his mind.
He's been accused of nationalism, revisionist history, even warmongering.
It's been a lot.
Yeah, and his films, especially Underground, have been at the center of these debates.
Yeah, Underground in particular has sparked a lot of controversy.
So how do you think we should approach these criticisms when engaging with his work?
I think it's important to acknowledge them.
Yes.
You know, to be aware of the criticisms
Right.
and to engage with them thoughtfully.
Okay.
You know, Kusturica's work is undeniably provocative,
Yes, it is.
and it's okay to feel conflicted about it.
Yeah, and I think regardless of your stance on these controversies, it's essential to approach his films with a critical and discerning perspective. Art can be a powerful tool for exploring difficult and controversial topics.
It can, and it should be.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not about providing easy answers or promoting a particular ideology.
Right.
Sometimes it's about asking difficult questions and forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, I think that's what Kusturica does so well in his films.
Yeah, he challenges us to think critically about history, culture, and the human condition.
He does, and that's a valuable contribution, even if we don't always agree with his perspectives.
Right, exactly.
Or his interpretations.
So this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Emir Kusturica.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have his background, his signature style, the themes he explores, his controversial reputation.
We've just scratched the surface.
Yeah, but I feel like we've laid a good foundation.
I think so too.
Yeah, for understanding his work.
Definitely.
And now I think we're ready to delve even deeper.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so we've talked about Kusturica's background, his style, some of the themes he explores, but now I'm ready to dive into some specific films.
Sounds good.
What should we start with?
Well, we talked about Underground as his masterpiece.
Yes, we did.
And it's definitely a film that comes up a lot when people are talking about his work, but I understand it can be a little intimidating. It's long, and it covers this really complex historical period, and some people find it pretty intense.
Yeah, I've heard it's a lot to take in. So for a first-time viewer, what should I be paying attention to? What makes it so special?
Well, one thing is how he manages to weave together different layers of storytelling. So you've got this epic historical narrative that spans decades, but within that you also have these personal stories, these intimate moments that really draw you in.
So it's not just a dry historical drama.
No, not at all. It's full of life and humor and those moments of absurdist comedy that we were talking about earlier. You can be laughing one minute and then the next you're completely moved by what's happening on screen.
That sounds very Kusturica. We were talking about his use of animals as symbols earlier. Are there any memorable animal moments in Underground?
Yeah, there's this one scene with a donkey.
A donkey.
Yeah, and it becomes the symbol of the character's resilience, their ability to just keep going even when things are really tough.
I love that. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about his attention to symbolism and how he finds meaning in these everyday things.
Exactly. Underground is full of moments like that. It's a film that you can watch multiple times and still discover new things.
Okay, you've convinced me Underground is officially going on my watch list, but maybe before I jump into that one, we can talk about something a little lighter.
Sure. Which film did you have in mind?
Well, we talked about Black Cat, White Cat, and it sounds like a perfect example of his comedic genius. I'm ready for a dose of that controlled chaos.
Black Cat, White Cat is a great choice. It's got all the classic Kusturica elements, the larger-than-life characters, these wacky misunderstandings, and a wedding that turns into a complete disaster.
Okay, you had me at wedding disaster. But what is it about his humor that sets him apart? What makes it so unique?
It's rooted in Balkan culture and traditions. He's not afraid to poke fun at everyday life, at the things that make his characters unique, and even at the complexities of Balkan history.
So it's not just slapstick or silly jokes.
No, there's a depth to it. There's a satirical edge that makes you think while you're laughing.
Right.
He finds humor in the most unexpected places, even in situations that are really tragic or dramatic.
That's a rare gift to find humor in the darkness.
It is, and it's part of what makes his films so captivating. They remind us that even when things are tough, there's still room for joy and laughter and a little bit of absurdity.
I'm starting to see why people describe his films as a celebration of life. Even when he's dealing with difficult subject matter, there's always this underlying sense of joy and resilience.
Exactly. And Black Cat, White Cat is a perfect example of that. It's a film that just embraces the chaos of life, the absurdity of relationships, and the pure joy of being alive.
And the music, it's got to be amazing. We talked about Goran Bregović earlier. I'm guessing the soundtrack for Black Cat, White Cat is just as vibrant and energetic as the film itself.
Oh, absolutely. It's this incredible mix of Balkan folk, Romani brass, a touch of rock and roll. You can't help but tap your feet along to it.
It's incredible how music can elevate a film and really transport you to another world.
It's essential in Kusturica's films. The music isn't just background noise, it's part of the storytelling. It sets the mood, it enhances the emotions, and sometimes it even drives the narrative forward.
You know what I'm thinking? I might need to make a Kusturica playlist for my next road trip. It sounds like the perfect soundtrack for an adventure.
Oh, I totally agree. It would definitely add a touch of Balkan magic to your journey.
Speaking of journeys, we haven't talked about his Hollywood period yet.
That's right.
Arizona Dream.
Yeah.
Just seems like such a strange fit. A Serbian filmmaker making a movie in Hollywood with Johnny Depp? How did that even happen?
Well, Kusturica had already gained international recognition with films like Time of the Gypsies and When Father Was Away on Business, so Hollywood, as it tends to do, came calling.
Ah, so they were intrigued by his style, his ability to tell these captivating stories.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that he didn't really try to adapt his style to fit in with Hollywood. Arizona Dream is still very much a Kusturica film full of surrealism and those quirky characters and dreamlike sequences that he's known for.
So he didn't compromise his vision to please the Hollywood machine?
No, he stayed true to himself, and the result is a film that's both fascinating and frustrating. It's become a bit of a cult classic over the years, loved by some, dismissed by others.
I'm definitely curious to see where I fall in that spectrum. It sounds like one of those films that you either love or you hate.
Yeah, it's not your typical Hollywood film, but if you're open to something that challenges your expectations and takes you on a bit of a surreal journey, then I think you'll appreciate it.
Okay, I'm adding Arizona Dream to my list. It sounds like a fascinating glimpse into what happens when a maverick filmmaker collides with the Hollywood machine.
It is, and it proves that Kusturica's vision is strong enough to transcend cultural boundaries and cinematic conventions.
Speaking of strong visions, we talked about how his films often explore cultural identity, especially in the context of the Balkans. I'm thinking about Time of the Gypsies again. It feels like a film that's so deeply rooted in Romani culture.
It is. It's a film that celebrates Romani culture, their traditions, their way of life. It's not just a story about Romani people. It's a film that comes from within that culture.
And he actually cast non-professional actors from the Romani community, right?
Yeah, he did. It was important to him to capture the authenticity of their experiences, to give them a voice in the film.
Wow, that's remarkable. It shows a real commitment to representing their culture with respect and dignity.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that makes Time of the Gypsies so powerful. It allows us to step outside of our own cultural bubbles and to see the world through the eyes of another culture.
To connect with these characters on a human level, regardless of their background or ethnicity.
Exactly. And I think that's a message that's more relevant than ever today.
I agree. It's so easy to get caught up in our own little bubbles and forget that there are other ways of seeing and experiencing the world.
Yeah, Kusturica's films are a good reminder of that they challenge us to get out of our comfort zones and embrace the diversity of human experience.
Time of the Gypsies is a celebration of Romani culture, but it's also a film that speaks to universal themes.
It is. It's about family love, tradition, the search for identity, things that everyone can relate to.
Did you mention that it has magical realism in it? A young boy with telekinetic powers?
Oh, yeah. The magical realism is woven so seamlessly into the story. It's just part of their world.
I love magical realism. It allows us to see the world with fresh eyes and imagine all these possibilities beyond what we normally see.
It adds a layer of enchantment to Time of the Gypsies that makes it truly unforgettable.
Okay, we've talked about Underground, Black Cat, White Cat, Arizona Dream, and now Time of the Gypsies. Is there anything else we need to cover before we move on?
Well, we briefly mentioned When Father Was Away on Business, but I think it deserves a little more attention. It often gets overshadowed by his other films that are a bit more, visually extravagant, but it's a really powerful and moving film.
It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it really is. It shows his skill as a storyteller and his ability to create characters that really resonate with audiences.
Remind me, what is When Father Was Away on Business about?
It's set in 1950s Yugoslavia, and it's told through the eyes of this young boy whose father is sent to a labor camp after making a careless remark.
Oh, wow.
So it's a coming-of-age story, but it's also a political commentary and a family drama all rolled into one.
It sounds like it explores the impact of political events on everyday people's lives, the way that history shapes individual destinies.
Exactly, and he does it with such sensitivity and nuance. He captures the confusion and fear, but also the resilience of ordinary people caught up in these big historical events.
It's a good reminder that the big stories of history are made up of all these individual stories, all these personal experiences that often get lost in the official accounts.
Yeah, and When Father Was Away on Business brings those individual stories to the forefront. It humanizes history and reminds us that behind all the politics and the ideology, there are real people living real lives.
I'm sensing a theme here. Kusturica seems drawn to stories that explore what it means to be human, the complexities of life, and the ways we try to navigate the challenges and the absurdities of the world around us.
I think that's a great observation. He's not interested in creating simple heroes or villains or in giving easy answers to difficult questions. He's interested in the messiness of life.
Yeah, the contradictions, the gray areas.
Exactly, and that's what makes his films so relatable. They reflect the world as we experience it with all its imperfections.
So I'm feeling much more confident in my understanding of his films. Now, we've covered a lot of ground, his major works, his style, his themes.
His unique blend of humor and tragedy, realism and fantasy.
Yeah, and his controversial reputation. The importance of approaching his films with a critical eye.
So now that we have a solid foundation, I think we're ready to go even deeper and look at the specifics of his cinematic language.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So how does he actually construct his films? What are the techniques he uses to create that unique style?
Well, we've talked about his visual flair, his dynamic camera work, his unconventional angles. Can you break that down for me? What is he actually doing that makes his films so visually striking?
One of the things he does really well is using camera movement to create this sense of energy and dynamism. He's not afraid to let the camera move to swoop and soar through the scenes, often following the characters as they move through their world.
So it's not just static shots. The camera is like a participant in the action.
Exactly. It's like the camera has a life of its own, dancing and swirling along with the characters and the music.
I can almost picture it. It sounds very immersive, like you're right there in the middle of everything.
It is. He also uses a lot of long takes, which lets him capture the flow of life, the natural rhythm of conversations and interactions.
And long takes can be really hard to pull off, right? It takes a lot of planning and precision.
Oh, absolutely. But he makes it look effortless, and it adds a sense of authenticity to his films. Like, you're eavesdropping on these characters' lives, witnessing these moments as they happen.
It's like he's orchestrating this symphony of movement, sound, and emotion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the conductor leading this orchestra of cinematic elements to create a truly unforgettable experience.
And speaking of unforgettable experiences, we can't forget about the music. It plays such a crucial role in his films.
Yeah.
How does he use music to enhance the storytelling and create that Kusturica atmosphere?
One of the things that's really unique about his use of music is that it's not just background accompaniment, it's woven into the film. It often drives the narrative and shapes the emotional arc of the story.
So it's more than just setting the mood or creating atmosphere. It's an active participant in the storytelling.
Exactly. He uses music to heighten the emotions, to underscore comedic moments, and sometimes even to foreshadow events. It's like the music is another character in the film.
That's fascinating.
Mm.
Could you give me some specific examples?
Sure. In Black Cat, White Cat, there's this scene where the characters are dancing at a wedding, and the music is this incredibly infectious blend of Balkan folk and gypsy brass. It's energetic and joyful and perfectly captures the celebratory mood of the scene.
I can just imagine. It sounds like the kind of music that makes you want to get up and dance.
Exactly. But then later in the film, when the wedding descends into chaos, the music changes too. It becomes more frantic and dissonant, reflecting the escalating tension and that sense of things spiraling out of control.
He's using the music to mirror the emotional arc of the scene, the shift in mood and atmosphere.
Exactly. And he does this masterfully throughout his films. It's part of what makes them so immersive and engaging. You're not just watching a story unfold, you're experiencing it on multiple levels, visually, emotionally, and sonically.
It sounds like he's appealing to all of our senses, creating this multisensory experience that draws you in and doesn't let go.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that defines his cinematic language. It speaks to the heart, the mind, and the soul.
It's like he's created a world that you can't just observe from a distance. You have to dive in and experience it fully.
And once you dive in, you'll never want to come up for air.
So we've really unpacked a lot about what makes a Kusturica film so unique.
I have.
But, for someone who's ready to dive in, where would you even begin with this filmography?
Well, there are a lot of great starting points, but I think for a first-timer, Time of the Gypsies is a good one.
Yeah, what makes that such a good starting point?
Well, it's got that magical realism element that you mentioned earlier, and it really showcases his skill at creating these immersive worlds that are just so visually captivating and heartbreaking at the same time.
Right.
And it's one of the films where his collaboration with Goran Bregović really shines.
Okay, I keep forgetting to ask this.
Yeah.
What is it about Bregovic's music that works so well with these films?
Well, it's like this blend of so many different influences. You've got Balkan folk music, Romani music, a touch of rock, even some classical elements in there. And it's both familiar and completely unique at the same time.
It's like energetic and melancholic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It sounds like it mirrors the tone of his films perfectly. That mix of joy and sorrow and chaos and beauty.
Right. It's like this emotional undercurrent that runs through the film, and it just amplifies everything. It adds another layer of complexity to the storytelling.
Okay, so Time of the Gypsies for the newbie. What about someone who's already seen a couple of his films and is ready to dive a little deeper into his exploration of Balkan history and politics?
Well, in that case, Underground is the one to watch.
Yeah, Underground.
It's definitely a challenging film.
Yeah, it seems like one of those films that just stays with you.
Oh, absolutely. It sparks debate, it makes you think, and you're left with a lot of questions even after you've finished watching it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a film that celebrates the resilience of the human spirit and the power of storytelling.
Okay, Underground, it is. I'm adding it to the list.
Yeah.
But what about something lighter? We talked about Black Cat, White Cat as a good example of his comedic style.
Oh, yeah. If you're ready for a dose of pure joy, Black Cat, White Cat is the perfect film for you. It's chaotic and hilarious, and it'll leave you feeling good.
Yeah, and it's full of animals, right?
Oh, yeah. There are animals everywhere. A pig, a goose, a dog, even a bear.
A bear? What?
Yeah, but they're not just there for comedic effect. They're actually woven into the story, often serving as symbols or metaphors.
It's amazing how he makes those absurd elements work so well.
He really does. It's a testament to his vision and his ability to create these worlds that have their own logic.
Okay, so we've got a film for the newbie, a film for the history buff, and a film for the comedy lover. What about Arizona Dream? Where does that one fit in?
Arizona Dream is interesting because it's his Hollywood film.
Right.
And it's definitely a bit of a departure from his other work.
Yeah, I'm so curious about this one. The idea of him working within the Hollywood system, it just seems like such an odd pairing.
It was a clash of cultures for sure.
Yeah.
But he still managed to make a film that's both distinctly American and unmistakably Kusturica.
So it's a good one for someone who wants to see how his style translates to a different setting, a different filmmaking tradition.
Exactly. And if you're a Johnny Depp fan, you'll get to see him in a role that's unlike anything else he's ever done.
Okay, Arizona Dream is going on the list too, and I think I'm finally ready to tackle Underground. But I have to ask, for someone who might find his films a bit overwhelming at first, what advice would you give?
I would say don't overthink it. Just let yourself get swept away by the story, by the music, by the visuals. It's okay if you don't understand everything the first time around.
So it's more about the experience than trying to analyze everything.
Yeah, exactly. Let your emotions be your guide and just let yourself laugh and cry and be surprised.
I love that. It's like a reminder that sometimes you just have to let go and let art wash over you.
Exactly. And Kusturica's films are all about transporting us to different worlds, different ways of seeing and experiencing life.
Well, I think we've done a pretty thorough job of unpacking the world of Emir Kusturica.
We have.
We've talked about his films, his style, his themes, and even his controversial reputation.
And we've given our listeners some ideas of where to start with his filmography.
Yeah. So if you're ready for a cinematic adventure that'll challenge your perceptions and expand your horizons, then I highly recommend diving into the world of Emir Kusturica.
You won't regret it.
And who knows, you might even find yourself dancing on a table with a pig.
Now that's an image.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.